Welcome to the Macworld Podcast. I'm Roman Loyola. I'm joined by, to my left, Leif Johnson, Jason Cross, the most important man in the room.
You always say that.
Dan Masuoka.
Hello, good morning.
It's true.
And it's always true because Dan is keeping a track of our Twitter feed and our YouTube comments because we're looking for your comments and questions during our podcast today. So if you have any comments, questions, thoughts, ideas, let us know. Dan is monitoring those and he'll let us know what you guys are thinking. So today we're going to talk about the death of the AirPod. So sad. We're going to talk about possible VR, AR projects over at Apple. But first, we're going to talk about yesterday's big news that Apple made a lot of money.
Yes.
Such big news.
Yep. A lot of money.
So Apple yesterday came out with their Q2 2018
Yes.
results.
Yeah.
So, and they announced a record. Was it a record Q2 or was it
No.
a record in general?
2015 was a bigger Q2. Oh, wait. No, it was record revenue,
But
but
right.
not record iPhone sales.
Got it.
Right.
So,
I knew there was a catch there.
It was
Yeah.
close. It was a lot of iPhone sales, better than years.
yes. So, and the big thing leading up to this announcement was that there was a lot of speculation by analysts and some journalists saying that the iPhone 10 wasn't selling very well.
Yeah.
So, but it turns out,
Selling very well.
as Mike Simon put in the headline, it's doing just fine, people.
It's funny because they wouldn't let go of that narrative before it went on sale. They're
Yeah.
like, nobody's going to buy this. It's $1,000. And then they had their quarter last year, and they said, well, I mean, it wasn't on sale for the whole quarter, but ever since launch, it was the top selling iPhone every week. And then Tim Cook said, again, this quarter, every week, the top selling iPhone in the world is the $1,000 one. It's the top, which is this is the first year that's happened ever since they split it, the iPhone 6 into the 6 and 6 Plus. Like the more expensive one's never been the top seller.
Now, for clarification, when he says that the iPhone 10 is the best selling one every week, is he saying that in terms of revenue or in terms of units sold? Or he didn't differentiate?
Well, he didn't differentiate, but he says it in response to people talking about units sold.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
And I think it's a matter of, I was thinking about this morning. It's one of those things where I think the analysts are right and Apple's right in a way.
Right.
Because up until this year, Apple did two unique things this year. One, they introduced 3 new phones instead of 2.
Yeah.
Right? The
Very
iPhone
different
8
ones.
and 8 Plus and the iPhone 10. The second thing is they hung on to continuing to sell the 2-year-old phone.
Yeah.
They always drop the 2-year-old phone and they keep selling last year's model, right? So they're still selling the 6S and 6S Plus, which normally they would have dropped that.
Normally dropped those.
So
yeah.
normally there's 5 iPhones on sale, the SE, last year's 2, and this year's 2.
Right.
And now there's 8.
Yeah.
Right?
8 phones.
So you used to be the top. I mean, you take a pizza, cut it into 5 slices, and compare the biggest slice versus cutting a pizza into 8 slices and compare the biggest slice. Like, you can be the biggest slice and still be a lot smaller percentage
Right.
of the overall number of iPhones.
Right. It's all relative.
Yeah. The other thing is that they were always looking at the supply chain, and in the Q&A after, they tried to kind of ask about this, and they got a sideways response. But basically, Apple said, yeah, we were building up inventory of parts.
Right.
It's not a sales issue. It's just we don't like to build up inventory of parts, so we reduce the number of parts we're ordering. Calm down.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of those sites were saying, things like nobody wants to see wants an iPhone 10, and and they were basing this and I think the guy was from San Francisco, and he was basing it on looking around him. And I was saying to Mike Simon in chat just before we started here that like every morning I look around on the subway here and see what phone people has, and it's usually the iPhone 10.
Yeah,
I would say about 7 out of 10 times. Honestly, it's kind of crazy.
There's a lot. I mean, it is San Francisco. But,
Yes.
But I was surprised to hear Tim Cook say the iPhone 10 was the top selling phone in China.
Yeah, that was very surprising because we've always heard reports that you need to have a low-cost phone to penetrate China.
Right.
So, and there was even like a period of time when sales were flat and people speculated because the iPhones were too expensive.
Yeah. I mean, there's a market for high-end phones in China, but the speculation was that's kind of saturated.
Right.
There's a much bigger market for low-end phones. And I'm wondering what's going. Not just the top selling iPhone, the top selling phone in China, right? And I think maybe that has to do with the fact that it can be a really, really tiny percentage of overall phones sold, but there are just so many cheap phones. Like, so all the cheap phones are just getting spread out among a lot of models.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why.
And another thing, when I've heard it that they really need cheap for China, one of the things I didn't understand about that is because I hate to be almost kind of stereotypical about the way they are right now, but there seems to be a real drive for that kind of high end product in China right now. They love that stuff.
They do like status purchases.
There's status purchases.
There's buying some like big American cars have been an issue like that for some time now. There, but of course you still have to afford that status purchase, right?
Well, it wasn't it. There was speculation that the reason why Apple came out with gold and rose gold was to address the China market because they like gold as it's a status symbol.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there is no gold iPhone 10. So.
No, there's no rose gold iPhone 10.
But there's a notch.
There's a notch. It's the top.
So there's a way to differentiate it from every other phone. So yeah.
Well, one of the things I had with, everybody talking about, $1,000 phone, they're, especially in the States, they're talking about this like people are just making that in one payment. No, it's like $40 a month to your regular phone bill and stuff. And usually, in comparison to your phone bill, that's, kind of like a relatively small expense. And that's what they're not seeing when you get that. And everybody I meet that has an iPhone 10 and outside of us has been happy with it. So it's
I'm happy with mine.
Lavishing more praise on it than I think it would. They're talking about, because I hear people saying it's the greatest phone ever, and I don't actually use one on a daily basis.
I honestly didn't expect it to be the best-selling iPhone because just like before, it's the most expensive one. I thought, well, it's going to have the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus will be the top model, and then it's $1,000. It'll sell okay, and it'll do great money for them. It'll be great profit, but not necessarily be the top one. So I was a little surprised to see even now, after the initial rushes off of like iPhone fans buying that first set of them, that it's still hanging on.
Yeah. So the iPhone 10's doing well.
So there's a question on YouTube. It's kind of somewhat related. So is the iPhone SE really going to happen, or is it just speculation? Did Apple say how many iPhone SEs they sold right now?
So Apple does not disclose
iPhone.
Actual iPhone numbers.
Yeah, they don't break it down.
Yeah, they don't break it down like that. They kept saying the iPhone 10 was the top seller, but they didn't tell you how many units they were selling.
Technically speaking, it could be 13% of all iPhone sales and be the top model.
Right.
That would be a very evenly split market, but they don't break it down, and they never said it to SE, and they don't announce before they announce.
Yeah. So I think they, in their disclosure, they announced like they sold X amount of units. But that's total units.
Yeah. Total, yes.
All iPhones.
52 million, I think.
Something like that.
This quarter.
Yeah, but so they don't say we sold 10 million of this phone and 10 million of that phone. They just say 52 million iPhones.
Right.
So so they didn't break that out. As far as the iPhone SE goes, I mean, there were rumors that a new one's coming out. Was the last rumor in the fall? Was that?
There was another rumor earlier this year saying
there was
people
one by the time I
expected
joined.
it in the spring thing, and then that became an education event. So, who knows?
And then the latest rumor was saying that it would have a glass back and no headphone jack.
Right. The latest rumor, there was no headphone jack. Some people are like, well, maybe not. It's iffy. But they think they're going to add wireless charging.
Right.
I don't know.
So.
But none of this seems to be based on anything really solid.
Right.
I mean, this is, the people who watch the supply chain don't seem to have as solid a lead on the iPhone SE as they do on other iPhones, in part because they're built in India and have a sort of different set of suppliers that send different stuff there. So, we really just don't know. I mean, I think there's demand for it. I think there's enough demand that they should, at the very least, just upgrade those internals.
Right. Yeah, there's a demand for it, and it's a good bookend for their product line.
Yeah, exactly.
So whether Apple really considers that or not, I don't know, but it does fit their product line really well, considering everything else that's in their product line for the iPhone 10. So
And that's important too, because so many people were about the doom and gloom about $1,000 iPhone, but they rounded out their selection pretty well this last year.
Yeah.
Having, like you were saying, the bookend of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and keeping on those iPhone 6s at the lower prices.
I am surprised that the 6s are still there.
Yeah,
It's a couple
the
years
6S,
old.
yeah.
Yeah.
I could see the 7, but not 6.
And the 6Ss. Yeah, because I forgot there was a 6. So, I mean, I still, coincidentally, Dan borrowed my iPhone 10 for a product roundup that he's working on.
Yep.
That we'll probably talk about in the future. And so for about a week, I went back to my iPhone 6S Plus. And while I really like the phone because I like the size of it, and it is a bigger screen, I know Apple will tell you that the iPhone 10 is by area a bigger screen.
It's the same area as the Plus.
Right.
Phones.
But it's taller
But it's taller and narrower.
Yeah.
And that wider makes the Plus phones feel bigger.
Right.
Feel like bigger screens. Yeah.
And I think the Plus phones are sort of better for like watching movies and stuff because of the aspect ratio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there is something about the 10, like the usability of it, the touch functions I really liked. And
I imagine it's a lot easier to use with one hand too, because of that little bit of narrowness, right?
yeah, it is a little because of a little bit narrowness. So it made me appreciate the iPhone 10 a little more. And it made me wonder, especially because we also have the iPhone 8, the 8 Plus, and the 7 is still there.
Yeah, we still have the 7 Plus, the 8,
Right.
8 Plus, the 6
So,
6S Plus, and the SE, and the 10.
Yeah, because there's
Big lineup.
Yeah, then there's hard to differentiate between the 6, 7, and 8. So I mean, it's all processor speed, really.
Yeah, they're at least outwardly they're very similar designs.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and the cameras are different. So
Yeah, you get
Yeah.
you still get portrait on all the Plus models.
right,
But
right.
other than that,
Yeah.
it's not. They're better, but that's
Yeah.
what it is. It's just that they're just same cameras but better.
Yeah.
So Mike on YouTube asks if there's the rumor that there's going to be the wireless charging and the glass back on the SE, wouldn't that take away from, say, iPhone 7 sales?
Well, I guess that was the point I was eventually getting to.
Oh, okay.
Was that if Apple did update the SE with a glass back, that could probably be the end of the 6. Even though
Yeah.
they're different size. I mean, the size is fulfilled by the 7. So the 6S could drop off because it seems like it's mostly there for in terms of price point.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It would
yeah.
have assuming they update the chip, it would be the same chip as in the 6S
Yeah.
and stuff. So yeah, I would think that. I mean, you don't get portrait and stuff, but
Right.
that seems like you have to go all the way up to the 7 Plus to get portrait
mode,
and everything. But yeah, you have to wonder how a better iPhone SE fits into that lineup.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that it's just smaller than everything else out there.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
some people that's what they're looking for, right?
Yeah, some people like our producer Dan, the most important man in the room,
Yep.
Yeah.
used to be into smaller phones.
Yeah.
So
As someone who, like I hate carrying anything around, a small phone is nice. But I guess if they do the small phone, it would have to be full screen. So I think something smaller than the 10, but still full screen, I think could be nice.
yeah. So
Dreams.
we can all dream.
No, you're getting a bigger 10. That's what you're getting. Sorry.
And just to throw this out here, even though we all I think know the answer, Chris B asks, will it have an earphone jack?
Who knows? The latest rumors, no.
Yeah. The latest rumors, no. And the
But
trend
that's
is
And the trend is no.
yeah. So yeah.
I have to admit, since I got AirPods and my Bose headphones, I haven't plugged in a headphone in this thing in ages. So basically, I only do it for the show when we do Apple Arcade. So that's nice.
Wasn't there also a rumor that Apple was going to stop even including the dongle?
Yes.
The latest, something just a couple days ago, somebody said, and it's not based on anything.
Oh, right. It wasn't a bank. It was
a bank. Was it bank?
It was a Barclays.
Barclays, I think.
I think it was Barclays.
Yeah.
And they were just saying that, we expect the Lightning to headphone jack dongle we expect it to go away. Probably this year.
Yeah.
It wasn't based on
wasn't
they're not ordering anymore or something. We just said
Right.
this seems like the
Seems like it
year.
makes sense.
And the chip in there is made by Cirrus Logic, so we're downgrading Cirrus Logic's you know how much we expect them money to make and everything. And I think that makes sense too. I think they're eventually I mean, they include the Lightning earpods, right. So they're gonna keep doing that, and they're gonna eventually just get rid of that dongle, and you know if they can get this. So this factors into what the other interesting part I think of the financials were, besides just that they did great and they didn't tell us how many HomePods they sold because they're not going to, was that they said there was really huge growth in accessories, in particular in what's the section of accessories that includes like earpods and Beats headphones and stuff. That's they don't break it down, but I think that's what it was. I think AirPods are selling great. Right. And I think that's and they said AirPods are selling great, and we're struggling to meet demand and all that other stuff. So I think that's maybe that was the interesting thing to me, is that not only are we see AirPods everywhere here in San Francisco. You walk down the street, it's crazy, but they're a hit and more than we thought. And they're not brand new. It's not like they just introduced them, and they're still selling them. They're still selling like hotcakes. It's still growing. They're still trying to make more of them.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know how that market breaks out. Are they selling AirPods only to iPhone users? Is there a segment of that user base that actually uses Android phones?
I did see actually someone on the train the other day that was wearing AirPods and had a Samsung phone. So.
Really?
Yeah.
They work, but it's less than ideal. I mean, they're kind of a pain.
You don't get to use.
They don't do any of the special stuff. They're just Bluetooth. It's a Bluetooth headset.
Bluetooth headset.
Yeah.
Well, see, one of the things we're seeing with the AirPods, when I do my deal posts in the morning is, it's actual news when they're on sale. Yeah. Because aside from somebody from Apple. So that's not a deal, but hey, they're actually on Amazon and then they sell out within a day or so. It's kind of like the Nintendo Switch in that regard. So
So on a somewhat related note, Apple's wearable business, they said it increased by 50%.
Yeah.
So that includes the Apple Watch, the AirPods, the Beats
that's the part that was it. It was and
that's the part,
people were assuming, well, I don't think Apple Watch took off that much.
Right.
And I think it's AirPods is the big part.
Doesn't that feel like they're kind of hiding that number in there a little bit, like the Apple Watch demand?
Oh yeah, they're hiding.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, there doesn't appear to be any. I mean, nobody's looking at, say, the supply chain or sales of watch bands or anything like that and going like, oh, they're done. Nobody's buying Apple Watches anymore. It's still like they still every now and then sneak out some stat about how it's the top selling watch.
I'm sure of that.
Period. Yeah. Not smartwatch, watch.
Right. They kept saying that. They said that. Tim Cook said that a couple of times. That's the best selling watch.
Yeah, and it's apparently hanging on to that kind of thing. So I don't think they're going anywhere, but I also don't think they've increased 50%. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't feel that going out there and looking at what's going on.
Right.
And if it really is that popular, you really think you would see more interest from the app developers that do with it. And that's one thing we've been seeing is there's been kind of app support slipping off for the Apple Watch. And I think if the use was really high, even if they didn't have a spectacular app or something, at least try to maintain it because they have that presence.
Yeah,
on there.
I think a lot of it is just the way that people use the watch.
Yes.
Like even if you use that app, all you care about is the notifications, which you don't need the app for.
Right.
You're not digging in there and fiddling around with stuff. So
that's true.
I think that's part of it too.
Yeah.
Dead Sea on YouTube says, give me black colored set of AirPods and I will buy them. So,
I know. I want
Space Gray.
Space Gray.
When they make new AirPods, a second generation of AirPods, I'm down, and please Space Gray.
Oh, Space Gray,
especially matte.
Beautiful. Yes.
Matte Space Gray would be so great.
Yes.
Like instead of
matte,
glossy.
Imagine the wearables that they'll be selling then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can get colored AirPods from Colorware, but you have to pay an extra fee for that.
So I did. We have on the site a roundup of some AirPod accessories you can get, things like ear tips and stuff like that. And there's a place you can buy colorized AirPods that sell all kinds of different colors and textures, and you can send in yours to get them colorized. And they use this process where they basically it's like an acid process that microscopically diminishes and roughs up the finish.
Kind of like how they paint,
and then they
paint
add
a new
more.
car to kind of
But
buff up the car or whatever.
yeah, except only it's chemical and it's much
Yeah.
more microscopic than that. So
Yeah.
it bonds color to it and it looks perfect. It just looks like you have colored plastic. You'd have to cut into the plastic to see that it's not that color from the get-go. So it's really cool. It's just I don't want to spend $50 or $60 to do that. You can get your different ears, different colors, and the case a different color
Yeah.
and all that other kind of stuff. It's really cool. There's a couple places that make skins, but skins are tricky. They have to fit really perfectly
Right.
because that case is so perfectly. They fit so perfectly in that case that
Yeah.
it's tough to make skins that fit, and they can't cover the little sensors and all that
Yeah,
other
yeah.
stuff. So
Color. If you go to colorware.com, you can buy colored AirPods, but they're $300.
Well, see,
Yeah.
and this is what surprised me. I saw that. I was like, are those product red AirPods? Yeah. And,
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I actually want those. So it gives you an idea because
Yeah.
there's a red one on his screen. And I was like, that's beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, they have a variety of different colors. You can get gloss. You can even get matte colors.
yeah, you want your matte black
Yeah.
AirPods, you can have them if you're just willing to pay.
Right. Yeah. If you're willing to pay twice as much for yeah.
It is. Yeah.
So, I mean, they look cool though.
They do look cool.
So
Yeah. So Colorware, I forget the other company. They don't do as
There's
many
another
colors and
company, yeah.
styles, but they'll sell you black AirPods too.
we'll look those up and I'll put them in the show notes on the website. So
Yeah.
Apple Services is also doing really well. Recorded $9.2 billion in revenue.
Yeah,
So-
that's more than Macs.
It's more than that.
It's actually almost as much as Macs and iPads together.
Yeah.
Right.
But they've been talk for a long time about how for a couple of years now, the service is part of Apple's been
Right.
growing.
Yeah.
They're growing it more. It's Apple Music is a part of that.
Apple Music, the App Store.
Well, I think what's driving the growth is Apple Music growth and
Yes.
Apple Pay growth.
Definitely.
Right. And Apple Pay.
Apple Pay hitting more markets and
Right.
doing more things, and they take their little sliver of a service fee
Right.
on all those transactions.
Yeah.
Adds up.
It adds up. Yeah, it adds up to revenue. I don't think it's a big money maker
Yeah.
profit
yeah.
wise, but it's a lot of revenue. And then, of course, Tim Cook said he sees that as a real opportunity and for continued
Right.
growth and stuff. So, and we know they're investing billions of dollars in original video content. Whether that ends up being part of an Apple Music subscription or a separate thing
Yeah.
or something, that's going to be a services play. They're not just just going to give away access to all
Right.
those things for free.
Yeah. There was one question an analyst asked about where they thought future revenue was going to come from in terms of services. And I was hoping that Tim Cook would say something about
we
but he
got a
didn't.
real non-answer.
Right. We got a real non-answer, but I was hoping he would say we're investing in original content and looking into that, but he didn't say anything because Apple's never, well, I mean, they've made announcements about the original content, like, you know, what's the app show called again?
Oh, Planet of the Apps,
Planet of the Apps.
which is bad.
And Carpool Karaoke.
Carpool Karaoke, which I also don't like. This doesn't work in that bigger format.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just not,
So, but there are, you know, and there have been rumors of other shows, and you know that
Lots of
yeah,
other shows.
Like
Jason has
Spielberg and
actually.
stuff.
We've got a list, and it's
A
huge,
list, yeah.
and a lot of them sound good and are backed by very big names.
Yeah.
you know, I mean, they're bringing back amazing stories with Spielberg. I mean,
Yes.
come on,
right.
right?
So, and then among one thing that I think, when we were listening to the call yesterday, we kept hoping for something about the HomePod. I think it was also kind of a joke amongst us about what was going to be said about the HomePod, because it was just basically we released the HomePod was basically what they said, and they didn't offer any.
Yeah, I think the most they said was they really. This was in the beginning when Tim Cook was reading his prepared statement.
Yeah.
You know, he's like reading it,
Yeah.
and he said something about how it's widely regarded as having the best sound quality in its class and size. Like, you know, which you
Right.
can define class. Like, there's no set definitions of class
Yeah.
for these things. So they just Google Home Max is another class or size.
right.
It's not
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
So that, and then they said, and we look forward to adding new capabilities.
Right.
So
So do we.
yeah, so we, I
Yeah.
know.
If you ever liked hear, vague generalities and things like that, the results call is always something to listen to, because and dodging questions or even like answering questions with an answer that's totally unrelated. That's what the results call is all about. So nothing's ever really revealed, but it's always interesting to hear them dodge and weave.
Yeah, just nothing that isn't literally financial. Like we made this much money selling this many products. So like total. Yeah. It was, things that we don't expect aside, like we never expected them to say, oh yeah, we sold like a gajillion HomePod or something.
Right.
But other than that, this was a glowing financials report. Like it's hard to find downside in that they're selling like crazy products. They're selling products better than people hoped. They better than the analysts expected.
Right.
They made more money than analysts expected. They sold more things than like it's sunny on almost every measure.
Yes.
And the best take, which was a few words long, was Mike Simon, who said, "Imagine if Siri was good." Like, imagine if they had if Siri hadn't kind of been trending down, right? Because that could have helped. It was still like the number one thing,
definitely,
and other things like how well could things be selling if Siri was amazing?
Help even AirPods,
yeah.
Speaking of Siri, we asked on our Twitter feed, we took a poll. We asked what should be Apple's priority over the next year. Knowing what Apple has done with its results, we thought it'd be a good idea to see what readers thought Apple should be prioritizing. And we asked over on our poll. We got over 1,000 votes, and the results were 18%. Of people who voted thought that Apple should work on extending the iPhone leadership in its market. A whopping 39% think that Apple should make Siri great again.
That's got to be the winner, right?
Yeah, that's the winner.
Okay.
20% want Apple to work on the innovation in the professional Macs, and 23% thought Apple should work on new products and services.
Right.
So. Siri honestly, is overwhelming.
They're obviously doing all these things, but we're just in terms of what do you think top priority should be?
Yeah, because Apple's known to corral all the troops together to work on one thing. And then they work on all these things, but every once in a while they say, okay, this is what we're all going to focus on. Oftentimes it's like related to an OS release or something like that.
Of those items, what do you think should be their top priority?
Of those items, what
do you want to see?
I would like to see innovation in a Pro Max because I think it's more not necessarily that they need to reach a certain sales number, because one of the things about the sales results or the quarterly results that came out yesterday was that Mac sales were slightly down. So, but it's always hovered around 4 million, and it always
goes a long time now. Yeah,
it's always around 4 million at its lowest. At its highest, it's about 5.5, which is usually
per quarter,
first quarter.
Yeah,
Christmas time. So per quarter, so you're looking at 16 to 18 million Macs per year.
Yeah.
So, but to me, it's not necessarily.
It's something like 10% of the overall consumer PC market.
Yeah.
They have to double sales to even be 20% of the overall computers people buy. Right.
Yeah, and to me, as the answer says, it's about the innovation. It's not about selling more Macs. To me, it's about innovating. To me, the Touch Bar is not an innovation.
Right. I agree.
And we keep hearing about the Mac Pro that potentially could come out. The iMac Pro. It's a nice machine.
I think that was their first sort of step toward.
Yeah.
But I think I'd like to see them do something that makes people say, "Wow, nobody else is doing that."
The iMac Pro just feels like it's like what a lot of the competitors do. We'll put a stronger phone in here, we'll make a better display, and that's what makes this awesome. And in that regard, Apple's kind of following that trend, and we're not really seeing innovation, creation
take a leadership role in that. So, that's what I would like to see. What about you, Leif?
I would actually like to see. I would actually like to see Siri improve. Yeah. But the thing is a lot of people when they talk about Siri, they talk about that Apple needs to loosen its stance on privacy, and that would allow you to greater access to to your information to make it more useful. I just want Siri to be more accurate, honestly, and if it had some of the existing services and it would allow you to it would hear you more accurately than like other services do. Because like I use Google Assistant sometimes on my PC to dictate to Google Docs, and it's amazing. You can't get that same kind of accuracy with Siri, and I'd like to see something like that.
Yeah,
and,
the dictation on iPhone or even on Macs just isn't
definitely
as good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So when you say have it be more accurate, you mean its understanding of your speech?
Exactly. It's
Okay.
hearing what I'm saying. Yes,
Yeah.
and transcribing it correctly. Yes.
Yeah, I've gotten so used to not using Siri, which is why I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for it to be improved. So I would, of course, want it to be improved, and I would use it. But because I've gotten so used to not using it, to me, it's not a priority for me. But what about you, Jason?
I kind of agree with the wisdom of the crowd there with Siri.
Yeah.
Just in that Siri touches
Everything.
almost everything else Apple does.
Yeah.
And to better and worse degrees. I mean, I never use Siri on my Mac. It's there.
Yeah.
But and a part of the reason is it's just not and I don't really have a big problem with Siri not understanding me. I have a big problem with Siri not being able to give me a result.
Yeah,
Not being
yeah.
able to give me when it gives me a result, it's kind of usually accurate, sort of,
Yeah.
but it a lot of times just doesn't give me a result. It just kicks off to a web search
Yes.
for things, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't work with as many services as I want it to.
Yeah.
Like I want it to be able to play music from Spotify or something if that's what I choose.
Right.
And those, I think if it did all those things, I would use it on the Mac all the time. And there's just there's just so much runway and so much upside to making Siri at least as good as what Google Assistant stuff is today, if not better, right?
Yeah.
They've got to skate to where the puck is going. They've got to be better than what those things are today just to be competitive. So, yeah. I think
Sometimes I think Apple thinks that voice control maybe isn't as important as people have been making out to be. Like you were saying that you rarely use it and stuff. And when I normally use it, it's on my 1 mile walk down on my commute here, and I use it on my AirPods to talk to people and stuff like that. I never use Siri on the Mac in the office here because it's annoying.
Yeah.
There's that, and so it seems like the speakers would be one of the best uses for it if it was in the kitchen and stuff. But
I actually think the next sort of frontier for these voice assistants is making them more like a person who is assistant would be, in that they would be proactive in communicating with you and not waiting for you to voice prompt them. So
Yes.
it would be less about voice control and more about them doing something like
Have you washed the dishes yet?
well,
Have you washed the dishes yet?
so as a
Let me
different-
remind you in 2 minutes.
Yeah. So that would be an example of that would be terrible. Like I wouldn't want a human assistant to do that, and I wouldn't want. But what I would like is if it's seen that I've done several searches on the web for some TV show, right, and that I haven't searched for before. It's new, right? Some new TV show coming out. And whatever, then like before that TV show comes on, if Siri just popped up a little notification that said, "Oh, hey, that show you've been looking up starts in an hour,"
That
you
reminds
may
me of a
want
scene
to
in
watch
Her.
it, or you can set your DVR to record it. Just touch this button because we integrate with your service, or what, anything like that. That would be something. They already do this to some small degree, where if let's say Google knows you've got a flight in your inbox,
Yes.
you've got an airline ticket in your inbox, and it knows what airport you're leaving from. When it's time to leave to get to that airport, it'll pop up a card and just say, "It's time to go to the airport." It does that looking at traffic, and it'll notify you earlier if you got to leave earlier and stuff like that. So that kind of proactiveness, I think, is where all this stuff is going, and there's a lot to be done there. None of them do it great. None of the assistants do it great, and Siri could be doing that.
Do you think that conflicts that type of idea, which I think is cool, by the way? Does that conflict with their privacy goals?
I don't think it does. It already searches all your emails and stuff. It just does it on the device, right?
Okay.
So I think there's still so much they could do just on the device, just accessing the thing on your device and never sending data off world to Apple, right? So, yeah.
But it would theoretically have to be asking, or it would be communicating with the web to be like, all right, when is this happening? What else is going? To get the context.
Oh
right?
yeah, like to check traffic and stuff. But Apple never has to see your email that has your airline ticket in it, right? It can find that on your phone, for example.
Several people responded on Twitter with comments to the poll. A lot of people think that Apple should be working on all of those, and they are. They are. Mm-hmm. Jason Solantis said that Apple is and always has been a hardware company, so why not make more products, make more hardware that's for pros and the general consumer? Siri will mature, and ideally that maturation will coincide with HomePod's evolution, but new products would help revitalize the company. So,
I would say, go ahead.
I was just going to say, revitalize the company sounds funny
That's
when they're just like the most
say.
valuable public company in the world and stuff. It's a pretty vital company. But I do get what he says about like, okay, you make
I think it goes to the
and you
point.
make laptops, and,
Right.
And they do new products. The Apple Watch is a new product that was
Right.
not that long ago. The HomePod was a new product, and it kind of landed hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing things like that, new. It's not just a phone or a laptop, the next best phone or laptop or whatever.
I think a lot of people who follow Apple, who are, I'll say, fans of Apple, one of their main complaints is that, well, Apple makes these great products. They haven't done any innovation in a while.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes to what I was saying about the Pro Max.
Yep.
So I think maybe that's what he's getting at, is that, people will see Apple as an innovator again.
That's a good segue into airports.
Well, I want to say one thing. When I was doing the one about the the Apple Watch luxury store closing down.
Right, in Shinjuku.
And the thing was that when I wrote that piece, I was going back and looking at Apple's former mission statements. When Steve was around, it was all about we want he didn't say the exact word. We want to be a shining force in the world or something like that. We want to democratize technology. Whereas now Apple's mission statement under Tim Cook is we make the best computers in the world and stuff like that. And there's very little of that same drive for innovation and creativity. So there is that right there in their mission statement. It almost is like their focus has changed. So,
well, we could see some innovation from Apple in maybe 2020.
Yeah.
Because there are rumors that Apple is coming out with a augmented reality and virtual reality headset, a combination headset. So this is a rumor that was reported by CNET. They cited unnamed sources.
Yeah, sources familiar with the matter.
Right.
Good old sources familiar.
So
they had a lot of details, though.
Yeah, it was a lot. It even had the product name, things like that.
Yeah,
they had the code. What was the code name? There's a product code name for it. Project 288.
T288.
Yeah.
Right.
T288.
Oh, T288. All right.
Yes.
And this is the same thing that was rumored last fall. And it was said just an AR headset then, but the same thing, same time frame. They're going to kind of have the technology in 2019 and want to put it on the market in 2020. And this new report added a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of details.
So
some of the fascinating details.
Yeah. So like one of the details that CNET stated was that there would be, the way the headset would work, it would have an 8K resolution per eye.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which seems kind of crazy. And
that's multiple times higher than
Right.
like a Rift or even a Vive Pro or something.
yeah.
Which means there's no way to drive that like graphically with like
Yeah.
even looking several years out, consumer graphics cards are not going to, it's going to have to be, they're going to have to be using a technology. Now my mind's blanking on it because it's early in the morning, but where it's an eye tracking thing where they
Right.
foveated rendering. That's it.
Yeah.
Where your eye only sees sharp detail in the very kind of center of your vision.
Yeah,
And your
yeah.
eyes unconsciously kind of move around really fast.
Right.
If you can track that really fast and draw that part of the screen detailed and use really low resolution drawing the rest of
Everything
the
else.
screen, you won't even notice it. You can't even tell.
Yeah.
You can't even see it. And getting that all inside a headset, nobody's really been able to do yet, especially at consumer prices. But if you could do that, then the 8K screen would make sense. And it would be nuts because you'd be in VR or something. You'd be able to like read text on a page and all this other stuff, like you do a book. That's incredible resolution.
What's the response time needed for something like that?
I mean, you need to figure out where the eye is looking in something like, I mean, it cuts into your rendering time no matter what you do, right? So you've got a millisecond or two, you know, at best to figure out where the eye is looking so that your next render, and if you're going to do 90 frames a second, then you've got, you know, 9 milliseconds or something.
Yeah.
Well, see, the more I think about this, the more I find myself kind of excited about it because, you know, where you're talking about innovation and stuff. And this is one of these things where I hate to actually hear a rumor like this ahead of time because this is something that could have really surprised us if it really goes somewhere. Yeah. And, you know, but it reminds me of a similar case in which the smartphone was in the early part of the last decade where, you know, smartphones were a thing and they were popular and stuff like this. But, you know, it was kind of doing incrementally and stuff. And suddenly Apple came out with this, whoa, here's the future. And it was amazing. And a lot of people sneered at it at first and stuff like that. But it really did transform things. And so if you have this headset that gives you a lot closer to what we have now, because currently VR is kind of like looking through a screen door, you know, something that looks more real, something, you know, and as, you know, you don't have to have wires. I think you do have to have like a separate.
Well, yeah, that was one of the other sort of rumors is that it will be driven from the headset will be have a wireless communication, but all the guts of the system are going to be in a base station that currently looks like a big PC. Yeah, we don't know what it will eventually look like, and it will run a custom Apple chip at 5 nanometers. And its own OS. It's not going to run Mac OS. It's not going to be a Mac that drives this thing. It's going to be its own box for this thing, and it's going to use 2nd generation WiGig connection to the headset, which has that kind of rumor has an impact because it's not only kind of gives us an idea of what this thing might cost, you know. This doesn't sound cheap now, but it also means that it's the kind of thing that lets you wander around your house, but not wander around the world. It's not Google Glasses, you know, kind of thing where you take it and you wander around the streets and it's augmented reality over the streets because you've got to have that wireless connection to your base station.
Yeah, it's an example of Apple, you know, not being first with technology, but doing it better. They're late to the party, but they can do it way better than everyone else if they do it.
Yeah, if these rumors are true, this is extraordinarily forward thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like this is not just like, oh, it sounds like an Oculus Rift only a little better, or it sounds like what the what's that startup that's shipping their headsets
Dream
now?
Something
Magic Leap has that's not the one. They've just got like a dev kit.
That's what I was thinking.
But Leap.
I can't remember. Yeah,
whatever it is.
Like
all these AR things, Microsoft's. This is not just like incrementally better than that. Like what they're describing here. What they're describing is truly next generation.
Yes. Right. And that's why I'm excited about this because that could be that type of innovation we've been looking for. But it's still just.
It also sounds like it'll be $5,000.
Yeah.
Very detailed rumor.
At that price, you know, for all the features that it would have to be that revolutionary, like how many people would actually buy it?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? But of course, they're also looking. This is a couple years out. Technology changes and everything, you know.
Price,
But still, yeah, that just sounds bonkers. Of course, everybody said nobody will buy an iPhone.
Right,
yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Jesus, $600.
Right. So
it has to. If it blows you away enough, they'll sell. They'll sell them, right? You know, they'll sell enough. As many as they can make.
But I mean, if you think about it, you know, for Oculus and Vive, they need a powerful computer.
Yeah.
So essentially, this is going to have a powerful computer plus all the headset technology.
Yeah, I think that extra thing will be the powerful computer, isn't it? Right.
Well, the base station part is the powerful computer. Yes. But that's what I mean. Just in terms of cost, I think he's saying like that's not going to be like a thing that costs $100. Like that's going to be. You know, even with Apple's own custom chip and all this other, whoever knows what's in it, and its own custom OS, and that none of this sounds even remotely affordable.
I mean, it would sound like it would be 5,000 out of the gate, but I would say best case scenario, I think you're still looking at like 2K.
Yeah. And maybe if it's a whole new platform, maybe if it's not just this thing that runs apps, but it really is. iOS was a new platform. Mac OS is a platform. Maybe if this is a whole new platform for them, you know, and it's $2,000 and it's blow you away, amazing for $2,000, they'll probably be able to sell as many as they can make for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Now
Yes.
we're into heavy speculation. We're talking
Yes.
about
Yeah,
price.
now we're
talking about price for
Right,
like
we're
this
totally
thing 2
making
years
stuff
out
up.
that we
Look us up 2
we're
years from
completely
now.
making things up.
I only hope it has an attachment for a barf bag because that's one of the main reasons why I can't do VR because I get motion sickness.
Well, you know, one of their patents that they got was supposedly some kind of game that, you know, if you got car sickness, you could actually, this is fairly recent, but, you know, the zombies chase you or something like that when you're in the car. And surprisingly, I don't know, I didn't really look at the science. This is actually supposed to help you with car sickness.
Interesting.
really?
So, yeah, but this was one of their VR patents that they got. And so
That's fascinating.
it'll be interesting.
You've tried like an Oculus, the final consumer Oculus Rift and stuff, and you still get motion
Yeah, I
sickness?
still get. Yeah, I don't know
Interesting.
why, but I do. I don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
was
don't.
playing-
The thing is, I don't get it like in cars and traveling and stuff. I don't get it anymore. But
Interesting.
it's one of the reasons why like I don't play first person shooters anymore because
Yeah.
I'm really sensitive.
I
get
know a
sick in
lot
the
of people
first
who
person,
got sick with Oculus dev kits and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then once they got into a low persistence vision screen and the right
Right.
frame rate and the got the tracking good enough and stuff
Yeah.
like that, then they're like, oh, no, this is fine.
Yeah.
Well, see, I was playing on an HTC Vive with a
Yeah.
friend recently and playing Skyrim in VR. And while that was cool, it was especially cool out in the open world. But when I got into the catacombs and the tunnels where it was a lot close, I couldn't take it. I was sweating. It was cool and stuff. But it was,
Yeah, certain games, I think, for me. But okay, so I think imagine if Apple made a 3D television. Like, you know, if Apple came out and how good do you think that people would be like, oh yeah, we are now into 3D TVs? Or it's just, I mean, some products, you know, only have a certain cap on how popular they're going to be, period.
it'd have to be pretty amazing. I can't see people getting interested in 3D TVs again.
3D, because 3D TV is not really 3D, and it just inherently has so many issues with it about sweet spot, about goggles you have to wear, all these other things. Even if they solved all those issues, you're ultimately looking at something that is just like looking at, it's like a pop-up book. It only stands out so far because of the size of your screen.
I'm just saying that like we make it seem like Apple can magically turn anything into this great
a gold mine,
into
yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah,
like I don't like
If they see a market for it, but I think
But I
if the
don't-
market has been kind of proven that 3D TV
Yeah, and
is
I don't
good.
think magically. I mean, they work at it a lot. They've been acquiring AR and VR companies like bonkers for the last
Yeah.
several years, and they have incredible engineering talent working on this. I mean, they're investing in it very, very heavily. AR kit on the iPhone seems just like the tip of the iceberg that they're letting us have right now.
And that's important. They're really focusing on AR, not VR. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the other surprising bit about this is that it would be a combination AR and VR headset. But
I think that's practical, but yeah.
oh yeah,
that's-
the technologies that are needed, there's so much overlap. It makes sense, but yeah, there's. I think it's just a matter of this is something that they're going to invest in very heavily for years and years before they lift the curtain and let us see something hopefully great. And they did it with the smartwatch. Smartwatches were around.
Right.
People didn't care that much. They weren't great, and they made one that was just good enough at the right at a price that was low enough. People complained about the price, but you know, the price was right enough, and the quality was good enough. And now Apple Watch is everywhere, and there's no second place. There's nobody's close in smartwatches.
Yeah, Apple has. I mean, the name Apple, you know, of course, has a certain amount of cachets that people will always be attracted to. But there is something about that Apple does that they're often never first to a market, but
Right.
they are able to figure out how to make it better and how to include features that attract people who are on the fence
Yeah,
on a
they're-
certain product category.
to make it good enough and at scale. Like
Yeah.
some people
Yeah.
do scale, some people do good enough, and Apple's
Never
one of the
both, yeah.
Apple's
And Apple knows
one
how
of
to
the
do
few
both.
ones who can do both.
Yeah. So like with the Apple Watch, as you were saying, yeah. So, so you know, I mean, how many units are Oculus and Vive selling? I mean,
It's
hard to
gone
say.
way down
Yeah.
from what the estimates were.
Yeah.
It's not a happy picture.
yeah,
I mean, they just like yesterday or something, released the Oculus Go, which is the
Right.
standalone, not 6 degree of freedom thing. It's
Right.
like basically
it's
like
$199. Is that right?
$199,
Yeah.
and that'll probably get some sales, because that's now you're
Right.
talking about a
I'm
price point
interested
that's
in it
decent.
now.
Yeah.
I mean, it is still a very immature market, still really young. So,
Yeah.
Apple has some time to play with that. And, it's if Apple ever does come out with this, they can automatically say, yeah, we've tripled the sales of so-and-so and so-and-so, but,
Yeah,
we're
even
dealing
if
with
it's
small
just
numbers
small.
already. Yeah. So
I think people underestimate how important it is to look cool while you're wearing these things. And if anybody can pull that off, probably it's Apple, because right now you look like a total nerd when you got VR and AR headsets on.
I think that matters a lot more in ones you would wear in public.
Yes.
And this sounds like something that's not, but still, I think people want it to look cooler than what's out there now.
yeah.
And but at the
Especially
same
the
time,
Vive.
especially like in an office, or I don't know how you would use it, but AR, if it goes with AR, I think that would be something that you would see more in public than
That's
the
true.
VR. So
Yeah.
Yep. Even if you have to stay close to that base station or something, like you said, an office, something where you're not traveling around, but there's people around.
yes,
Yeah.
Something we're not going to see in public or private much anymore are Apple's airport routers.
You don't know how much I live for your segues, Roman. We need to do a supercut. Dan, can we do a supercut?
A transition to transition.
Yeah, of Roman segues. Yeah.
So,
Like for the end of the year.
So I try very hard to do.
I love it.
So Apple earlier, was it late last week, right? Actually, it was the day after Jason published his story
Oh yeah.
on products that Apple should kill.
So yeah, we talked about it on
Right.
the podcast last week.
Right.
On Wednesday.
Tim Cook
that
was listening.
That I did a story of like 5 products that Apple should just
Right.
kill, but you said lay to rest or something.
Oh, yeah,
nice,
I changed it to put the rest.
Right. And the next day,
Yes.
that's crazy.
Apple announced that it is going to stop selling and producing airports.
Yeah. So the Airport Time Capsule, the Airport Extreme, and the Airport Express are 3 products. These products haven't been updated in years.
5 years or something.
Yeah, the Airport Express was released in 2012, so that's 5 years. And the Airport Extreme and the Airport Time Capsule were released in 2013.
The AC ones. Yeah.
So, yeah, 5 years.
That's 5 years ago, 2013. It's
But at least it was
you know,
AC. I'm surprised it wasn't just like an N.
It was first. So the other
Yeah.
one's N. That was sort of first generation 802.11 AC.
Yeah.
It was pretty neat at the time because they were doing some of the stuff in AC that everyone's doing now.
Right.
That they were kind of not necessarily first to market, but one of the first to do
Yeah.
some of this beamforming stuff, some of this like
Yeah.
dual channel stuff and everything. They were, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, for their time, they were cool products, and one of the reasons why they stood out was because it made it easy for general consumers to set up a router. I don't know how many times I've gotten a phone call where people were like, "Can you help me set this up?"
So the first airports were, I want to say, 2008, 2006.
That's a good question.
Something like that. I mean, so it goes back a ways, and back then there was a real need for that. There was
Yeah.
desperately a need for, like, you needed a router. They weren't giving, your ISP was not giving you a router, and routers were bad, and they weren't reliable, and they were hard to set up, and you had to go into funky, terrible
Right.
settings and load up discs on CDs and
Yeah.
garbage like that to change passwords and everything. It was a bad experience.
Yeah.
It's really not a problem Apple needs to solve anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Like modern day routers, first of all, your ISP gives you one and it's set up already. And
Yeah.
for most people, it's kind of like you plug it in and forget it.
Yeah.
And if you need more than that, there are a lot of companies making something else, making these mesh routers and stuff, and they're pretty darn easy to set up, and they have cool smartphone apps that let you like turn them off and, change the passwords and do all this other kind of stuff that used to be hard.
Yeah.
And the quality is pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's ultimately, I think, for Apple's greatest strength are in making products that you use that are beautiful and that you use really well. And routers are inherently a product that you hide away somewhere,
You stash it somewhere.
right? And the ideal for a router is you never use it. Like you basically you plug it in and you just forget it's there, and that's not Apple wants things you interact with. It's kind of like the Nest problem, where they had to design a product that you never touch. That's because the problem with thermostats is constantly having to change the thermostat. So they had to design a product where success means not using it, and that's not where Apple's forte is. So I'm glad they got out of this. There's so many people complaining they got out of this market, but I'm glad they got out of this market.
I was at home. This was a couple days ago, and I went into my office at home, and I was moving stuff around, and then I saw that I totally had forgotten that I actually use an old Airport Extreme router in the back in my office. And I was like, oh, I totally had, but I had not, it's been years since I've touched it.
Yeah,
it's very good.
So, and I even totally forgot that I had it there.
Was it still working? Like plugged in and
working? It's still working.
Wow.
And I use I use that Wi-Fi all the time. I just forgot that it was an Apple router that I was using.
Yeah. And that's the ideal, and that's bad business, right? Like even if you think I want this from Apple, like they don't want a product that you plug in and it's 10 years before you just think to upgrade it or something because it's just plumbing, So I understand from a business perspective why they got out of it, but also just from a company fit perspective, I'd rather them be working on other stuff.
But that what you were talking about, the innovation stuff. A lot of people think gigantic new product categories, but that's an important thing for Apple too. Is just make things super simple to take something that's really complicated and make it simple, and you can't for us, ideal situation, you can forget about it. I sometimes wonder if Apple still does have a person with that Steve Jobs type personality that's willing to say, no, this is stupid, and and it needs to be simpler, and or whether they're just kind of like going with the Zen flow with this stuff here. And I wonder if anybody has that forceful of a personality that is willing to do that. And I think if there is, we'd be able to see more of that innovation, as we call it.
What do you think is the next sort of what's a technology category that needs that Apple touch of like, this is complicated, everybody needs it to be simpler, everybody needs better access to it. What could they do? I think they did a pretty good job with the watch. I don't think watches were like desperately, like everyone needed a smartwatch and needed to do it. But I think is there a category like that?
Car dashboards.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say
car dashboard is a thing, but those are car companies. Like
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
right. That's tough.
Well, if our viewers have any ideas of any product categories that you would like Apple to get into, I mean, there was a large percentage of our poll. What was it again? 23% wanted new products and new services.
Yeah, wholly new, not just like the next laptop.
Yeah, so if any viewers have any ideas of what Apple could get into, I'm trying to think off the top of my head of something that drives me crazy.
I mean, because they're already in some of those spaces, like Apple TV, which I think is ripe for it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're doing a great job with Apple TV because it doesn't provide, what people really need or want, I should say. You need TV, but what people really want is just to pick the shows they want. They want really a la carte programming and stuff. They want streaming to be simplified and stuff. And Apple's not quite there yet. Apple TV just doesn't quite make it all work. Doesn't bring together all these disparate services and stuff in quite the way it needs to.
We know that Apple's tried for that though, but they've been having a hard time getting the deals finalized. Yeah. That's a rumor thing. But
the rumor was that they wanted to do their own streaming TV service, and it was just too hard to get all the license, everyone who owns all the licenses to get.
So you were talking about what products Apple should kill, and you got this one right. And Chris B asked, do you think the iPad Mini will be discontinued as well? So yours based on should, but what do you think is the wills?
Oh yeah, okay. What will they kill next?
So the iPad Mini was on your list.
Yeah.
But that was our opinion.
Yeah.
Whether Apple really does it, it's hard to say because the thing about the iPad Mini, as we were talking about product lines earlier, it does fill I don't even. Well, I was about to say it does fill a role, but I don't even know if that's really true because
It's a shrinking role, right?
right.
You
It's-
know,
and it's $3.99.
Cheaper iPads and bigger phones have shrunk
Right.
that gap it was filling, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm gonna guess the next thing Apple will kill, and they will kill it, is going to be either the iPad Mini or the iPod Touch. One of those is the next on the chopping block.
Also,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think iPod Touch, in a way, makes the most sense to get rid of,
Yeah.
just from a product lineup
They'll
standpoint.
sunset it.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be like this.
It'll be like we'll sell
they'll
out
do a press
current
release. They
inventory,
won't get
yeah.
on stage or anything. Just a quick press release that says, "Oh, well, when we sell out inventory, it's gone."
Yeah.
I think it still had a place when a lot of other competing smartphones weren't as good with the touch interface and stuff, and it gave them an excuse to have something that wasn't an iPhone and stuff. But let's admit it, everybody else has pretty much caught up with that. Touchscreen is the standard these days, and most phones do a pretty good job of doing that kind of stuff. So I think that would be a smart idea for it to kill.
And here's a suggestion from YouTube: the driverless car, as a suggestion that Apple could.
Yeah, there's a whole thing about transportation or
I'm not
moving
so
people
big on
around. About,
Yeah.
and it's funny because there's a whole controversy in San Francisco about these scooters that
They're catching on. They're catching on, though.
yeah. So for people who don't know, there's the latest thing, services thing, tech thing in San Francisco is that there are these companies that leave scooters just out in the city, and you can
Electric
use an app.
scooters,
Yeah,
yeah.
electric
Yeah.
scooters. They go up to like 15 miles per hour or something like that, and
And it's kind of a menace because people are leaving them.
I think people are overplaying that. I walk on the sidewalks every day. I don't think they're that.
Well, all right. To put it in perspective, I come into the San Francisco office, every few weeks. I was here 3 weeks ago. There were zero scooters. Like this was not even a thing that existed.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody talked about any of these companies. They didn't exist. They weren't anywhere on the sidewalk. And now today, it's been 3 weeks, and there's 4 scooter companies like startups who want you to use an app to like basically unlock and rent for like $1 or $2 a scooter to go a couple miles. And it's a great way to deal with a couple mile walk. Like, it's a great in between for like bikes, which are big and have to go on the street and stuff.
Final
like that.
mile.
if you
It's
need
like
to
$1
get
a
somewhere
minute.
quickly, if you have an appointment or something like that,
It's a great final mile
Yeah.
way to solve that in cities and stuff. But people just leave them out in the middle of the sidewalk where people trip on them.
Yeah.
And it's the human behavior factor. They're riding them on the sidewalks, and it's kind of a menace to the people walking. And so-
it's not the fault of the scooter companies; it's the users.
but
who
they
knows?
should. But it seems like none of them. They were so in a rush to be
Yeah.
the electric scooter company the brand that everybody associates,
Yeah.
that they didn't think of any of these things.
They should
How
have
to, like,
expected all that.
how to train people, how to
Right.
teach them, how to make sure, like,
Yeah.
what to do if
Yeah.
you spot one of our scooters, like park, and you can report it, and we're gonna find the guy who
right.
left it there. The last person to use it. It's just some way that they didn't. It seems like they didn't even care. They just wanted to be. It's typical sort of that Silicon Valley growth market mindset. And it's been 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks to go from 0 to 4 companies. I don't know how.
So you're saying Apple should get in the scooter business?
I was saying,
Is that what
we
you're
were starting
saying?
off of driverless cars.
We are saying that like transportation.
Right. There's something about transportation that there's like an inefficiency in general about it, whether it's a person driving, whether it's traffic, whether it's using it. There's just a lot of inefficiencies that seem to be, I mean, they're giant problems that need to be solved somehow.
And solving them requires, like, it's like this. The simple as we thought electric scooters is, you have to think of all these other things that impact the municipalities in which they operate.
Right.
So, whether it's Elon Musk digging tunnels under traffic, to electric skate your cars and pedestrians and stuff, that's a smart idea too, to get you crosstown traffic, and stuff like that. Things like that. I mean, it's not easy to disrupt. These are really, really big problems. I don't think it fits well with what Apple can do.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
that's
because
what
I don't think
Right.
I don't think it's the kind of thing you can bring to scale in a way that that Apple is used to. I think software for self-driving cars might be an issue. Not the cars themselves. That's a supply chain nightmare.
Yeah.
You know, not to mention, do they want to sell cars? I don't know. But like licensing software to self-driving car companies, maybe something. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, I liked where, you know, some of the speculation where they, you know, there's the attachment that Apple had on its prototype cars and stuff, where they were suggesting that it would almost be like the self-driving car or something like that, where instead of having a car that was made for that purpose, you would be able to outfit any old car with your, you know, self-driving car mechanism, and that would be Apple's contribution, is some way to make that easily happen. And
yeah, not a chance. That's not the way cars are made. Yeah, and I think a lot of it has turned out to be that Apple wasn't necessarily working. A lot of things people thought were Apple's self-driving car is Apple upgrading their maps.
Yes.
Right.
They've got these cars running around with LiDAR, and they're making a 3D maps thing that is sort of the next generation of what Google Street View is, with like full-on like high-res 3D and all this stuff. And I bet we'll see that come to iOS and stuff either this coming year or next year. But because they've been gathering data in a lot of cities and stuff. But that was, you know, an example of it wasn't about self-driving; it was about maps.
Right. Yeah.
And all the pundits were super surprised by that at the time. I remember.
And Talman on YouTube says Apple is great at coming up with good ideas, but then orphaning them. Siri, Apple TV, etc. So maybe they just gotta, you know, reparent these, you know, these children that could become better.
Yep.
I don't understand. I really am shocked that they dropped a ball on Siri, because it was clear how popular that was getting. It was, you know, they have the cash. They should have hired the engineers, done the, you know, it's just, you know, it is cool. She sounds cool, but, you know, a lot of, you know, they're even catching up with that now, where, you know, so the competitors are going to sound nice as well. So
I think that viewer is absolutely right.
Yeah,
in that this isn't their first time. They did this with the mouse and graphical user interface. Like the Mac was way ahead in that stuff. And they kind of, it's like sometimes Apple feels like we're so far ahead, no one can touch us.
Yes.
And then they just kind of move on to focusing on the next thing. And then Windows 95 comes out and just like drops a bomb, right? You know,
basically they destroy it.
You know, and stuff like that. You know, they just whereas if they kept at it, they would have been further along.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what comes out of Cupertino next.
And see, that is
I was trying to find a segue.
Segue to the end.
Yes. So
won't make the highlight reel.
Yeah, that won't make the highlight reel. So, but yeah, I think that just about does it for this week's episode of the Macworld podcast. So thank you to Jason and Leif. Thank you for coming in this morning.
It's my pleasure.
So thank you to Dan, our producer.
You're always welcome.
And thank you to the audience. Thank you for your comments and questions. Join us next week. We broadcast live on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube and Twitter. We're always looking forward to your comments and questions. So we really appreciate your participation. So see you next week. Thank you very much.